Perfect. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, what I want to do is I actually want to start out with some nerdy stuff, if y'all don't mind. And the reason for it is because there's many a times in which people will text me or communicate with me, after these sessions, and they're like, this is really hard. I always lock up whenever you call on me. I feel like I'm not at my best. So, can you not, call on me or anything like that? And so those that request not to be called on, yeah, I'm going to still call on you. And here's why. Here's why. And it actually relates to a lot about what we're talking about.
Suck it up, Buttercup.
Yeah, pretty much. Suck it up, Buttercup, right? Because you know what? I would not be doing my job. One is to teach, but the second one is to actually coach, right? So in order to coach you, this coaching is a do with process. If nobody's heard me talk about that before, I'll talk about it now. When I say that coaching is a do with process rather than a do to process, many people expect a do to process from coaching. Just coach me, just tell me what to do, right? And it's all one side to the person. Well, yeah, that ain't gonna work. As we're a do with process is when it's a constant feedback loop, right? That's how a coaching relationship should look like, is that when you have the constant feedback loop, you have basically the coach being able to adapt and the client or you being able to adapt to the new information. So why am I bringing this up? Because in order, and I say this over and over again, in order to understand ourselves first, it gives us insight onto how to communicate with other people. So from a scientific perspective, I'm going to kind of challenge you here, because a lot about what we talk about here is very superficial, I guess, but I want y'all to dig in a little bit deeper and maybe have a deeper understanding of what it actually takes to internalize information, okay? So first and foremost, can anybody tell me scientifically, why is mirror and matching so important? Just think about it for a minute, scientifically speaking. What is it, Nikki?
Comfort, you're able to associate with someone and be on their level, and then they trust you, so it establishes trust.
So what is it about the relatability that establishes the trust? Go ahead. This is an open format. It's okay. We're not stepping on each other's toes.
You're building rapport by actually doing exactly what they're doing, so they see it as being comfortable because it's exactly what they do.
It's exactly what they do, but here's what's also super cool to know about this.
Oh, you're just like me.
You're just like me, okay? So memories is actually the part of the brain that you're tapping into from mirror and matching. Because here's the reality. Did anybody know that you have over 100 billion neurons in the brain? Those neurons are constantly communicating with each other, okay? But here's the thing that's so important. By essentially mirror and matching, what you're doing psychologically, physiologically speaking, is that you're running their program. Their programming is nothing more than the same connection of these neurons, all right, communicating with each other on a regular basis. That's what a memory is that you're recalling how these neurons constantly interacted. When we have muscle memory, it's because these certain, let's just say these, 10 billion neurons are speaking to the same 10 billion other neurons as they send the electrical signals down. Does that make sense? Right? So something that's familiar, something that's creating a memory is nothing more, nothing less than those neurons basically having the same conversation that they've already had. So what happened? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. From scripts to biology or basic psychology, right? Whatever have you. But I want y'all to understand what this means, because again, when we talk about, okay, mirror and matching is super important because, it makes them like us. Yes, that is true. And I want you to have the deeper understanding of what it actually means to do that. So what is, if anybody's ever heard of this, neuroplasticity? Think about that for a moment. What is that?
Is that the capability for you to retain knowledge and
It's
recall
the
it?
ability, good shot at that one. It's essentially the ability to change those
Flexibility.
communications, right? So if we were talking about those 10 billion neurons, speaking of these 10 billion neurons, because let's say these 10 billion neurons are talking to each other and that's communicating how we walk, right? The basic functions, right? Those are all memories to where we're recalling at any single time. The neuroplasticity is, imagine that these 10 billion neurons, if they were either severed or a new habit is created, they now have to communicate with another bunch of neurons. So the neuroplasticity is literally where they're creating new connections with new neurons. Again, there's over 100 billion neurons in the brain, so there's an almost infinite capabilities of being able to adapt and to change. But what does it actually take to elicit the neuroplasticity?
Creating new pathways, new habits.
That's
Is that
it.
what you mean?
It's creating new pathways, new habits, okay? Creating new habits, new pathways for those neurons to connect with other neurons, which actually unlocks different parts of your brain. So we've all heard that we only use X% amount of our brain. The reason why is because the more deeply embedded that we are in our habits, in our communication, in our styles, whatever have you, our programming, okay, it's because we're connected to those. But the moment that you challenge yourself and you create new neural pathways, that's the neuroplasticity. Everybody has the capability to do so. So if I ever hear anybody saying you can't teach old dogs new tricks, I'm going to say BS, because I want you to talk to, someone who had an injury, who learned a new way to walk or talk or to communicate, right? Andrew, did you have your hand up?
Yes. So
Yeah.
doesn't it take a month to develop new habits if you continually reinforce the new habit over that period of a month?
66 days.
Oh, 66. Okay.
66 days roughly for those new neural pathways to essentially communicate, right? Yeah, Alicia, I think it is about like 10% of their brain. Most days we feel like we're running on 3%, right? Hey, no judgment, but that's the importance when we're talking about we are creatures of habit. That's the reason why. Think of it from this perspective. I'm going to get you really internal here, thinking about your brain, okay? The way that we communicate, our personalities, our emotions are dictated by those neural pathways, okay? What group of neurons is speaking to what other group of neurons? So therefore, when you create a new habit, you're creating those new neural pathways, okay? That's creating a new habit. That's creating a new understanding. That's how people learn. That's the example of neuroplasticity. People can do it. People can do it. But do you think it's just going to take, you listening in on scripts and be like, great, new neural pathways have been created. I now am a scripting master.
No, it's
Right.
practice and trying the new habit over and over on a regular basis until it becomes literally a habit.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then you just open your mouth and it's, oh, this is the new thing that comes out.
Yeah. It's because, and I think that what it is, Paul, perfect. Learn, apply, execute. Because that's literally how you learn. So if anybody ever heard that analogy, right? Oh, it's like riding a bicycle. Why? Because you have those neural pathways that are already connected, right? The reason why we memorize, why we have certain memories, such as riding a bike, as where people that forget faces or names, nominal aphasia, if you want to go super clinical, right? I'm just bad with names, okay? I don't necessarily have
Oh, no, what is
Nominal.
that called again, Stephen? Because I definitely have that.
nominal aphasia.
Nominal aphasia.
Aphasia.
I have prosopagnosia, which is face blindness, which is
Yeah.
awful in this business.
Oh, sure, right? But isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting where we have these, but literally those fancy words simply mean, do these neural pathways remember talking to these neural pathways? Are the chemical connections between these two, are they solidified? The reason why I have nominal aphasia is because I will hear a name, I do not repeat it, I don't remember it, so therefore no neural pathways are either speaking to each other. I hear it once,
Stephen?
it's distributed, never to be remembered again.
Hey, Stephen, is that why a lot of people with traumatic brain injury, like I was a boxer in the military,
Yep.
and I have traumatic brain injury because I was told that things will take me a lot longer to learn, but I have to practice harder and use a lot of tools like the computers and your phones and
Mhm.
and get with programs. And I think that what we have in this office is encouraging me that I can do this because I'm in a transition period right now. And I notice that it sometimes takes some people a lot longer, because if someone sets a standard for normal people for 1 to 2 to 3 minutes, there are some people that take, like you say, that how many days a period, the time span that you gave?
66.
That's what I like. I'm that person.
Yeah, and that's fine. That's fine, Duffy, because that's literally what it is that many a times, physiologically speaking, okay, because the neurons are just isolated things, they look like little roots, right? But they're isolated neurons that then communicate with all the other 100 billion or 99, right, other billion neurons around them. So if you have some kind of brain damage, or if there's a chemical imbalance that actually allows the electrical circuits to go through those neurons, right? That's what's going to cause a lot of the challenges in maybe creating those new neural pathways, because if there's a chemical imbalance, the chemicals are the ones that are released between, right, in the synapse, right, between those two neurons, that space. But here's the thing that you need to understand is that if there's a chemical imbalance, if there's a physical abnormality or physical damage to it, that those neurons cannot communicate with the others, then yeah, it will take longer for you to kind of repeat the same cycle. These 10 billion neurons speaking to these 10 billion neurons, at any given time, you have to do it consistently for that chemical stream, for it to basically be like, okay, this is an easy path to go on. This is familiar. Nikki, what are you holding up there?
I was laughing. I said, I can totally speak to this because for those of you who didn't know, I broke my neck 4 weeks before my wedding and had 2 major head injuries. So I have a pretty severe short-term memory case going on at all times. So if I do not write things down, 10 minutes later, it's like 51st dates. And I'm like, what did I do? What did I do? So it's a matter of writing it down. There's a correlation between writing things down and memory retention. So I have an entire wall now. It started out with about 15. There's about 210 Stevenisms that I created starting about 2 years ago. And this is how I retain it. And I start with these every morning. So writing it down really helps me get that.
I love that. Now, you know what is funny? That my affirmation this morning when I got, what is this? Don't create barriers in your head to block out real life. So it's a challenge, not a restriction.
So Duffy, a little pro tip. If you are big into affirmations, the brain that doesn't understand, don't. It doesn't understand that. So if anything, I am capable of.
Yeah,
I am. The I am statements are so, there's something unique about that. Just be cognizant of what you're doing. Andrea, I saw your hand up as well.
Oh, I was just gonna commend Nikki on her cute little caricature drawing of you, but she needs to make your hair longer.
Oh, okay, yeah, got it. As the years have progressed, Nikki, you can have the short hair all the way going down.
Yeah, these were 2 years ago. I do have longer ones, and he just looks like Jesus in my current one.
It's cute though. It's really
That's
good.
awesome.
I thought that you did that today.
Well, so why are we talking about this, right? Why are we talking about this? It's so important that we understand from a physiological, psychological perspective as we're learning these scripts. Number one, I'm sharing this with you to understand truly what it means, because when you're comparing yourself to other people, it is so unrealistic. No one on here has the same neural pathway connections as you, none of us do. We have the familiar ones, but nobody has the same mapped brain. Let's just call it like that, right? No one particular individual has the same mapped brain. So therefore we have different personalities, different emotions, different triggers, different, experiences, how we perceive something, right? We can all see something like this, but how it's interpreted when that message has been sent to our brain to process that information, the neural pathways, the unique neural pathways that we have will determine how we perceive it. Okay. So from this perspective, you all are perceiving something different. Some of you that may have had an inclination towards biology, psychology, psychopharmacology, or whatever have you, someone that has that kind of affinity, this may be landing with you differently than a person that's hearing it from the first time. And they're like, maybe I have to rewatch this recording if I want to nerd out on science, right? Neither is right or wrong. Andrea.
So I understand what you just said about everybody's brain is mapped differently because we have different habits, right? And different memories. So I feel like this is a skill that we can all develop. I know dancing, like, memorizing choreography is good to do, like, especially later in life, because it helps your memory stay sharper, as well as, acting, memorizing lines. It's the same thing. It keeps your brain sharper, doing puzzles, doing math, reading, anything to keep your brain engaged. It just helps your memory stay stronger.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because literally what you're doing is that through the repetition, right? And honestly, Duffy, I want to commend you as a boxer, because boxers, if you really think of it, versus any other sport, and I'm gonna just say this, boxing, I think, is the most physiologically challenging sport to ever exist, purely from a psychological perspective of how much noise has to go on in the brain with all these different processes. Okay, this person's coming at me. Do I duck? Do I, counter? Do I do this? How am I moving my feet?
Confrontations. Yeah, I feel like everything's a confrontation. That's why I say live with no stop signs. Just proceed with caution. And anything that I perceive as a confrontation, unfortunately, I eliminate or shut out until I can bring it back in.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, but when you hone in, so boxers that have that ability, think of yourselves as having that same capability. Yeah, it's like, Duffy, it's that focus, because what you're perceiving in this moment, you have to process, what am I going to do next? How am I going to move? Left, right, down, up? Which one? Punch to the, where are they going? Counter? Should I go for it?
And Stephen, what a lot of people don't understand is when you're in the ring, boxing, kickboxing, there's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of anticipation. And sometimes that focus makes you a little bit amped up and adrenaline flows. And a lot of times that's why when people challenge you, like, oh, you accept the form that, oh, you can't do your scripts. What's wrong with you? You need to get out of the industry. And I did that 15 years ago. And now I'm back. And I do not accept the fact that failure is an option. So thank you. You're awesome.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Failure isn't an option unless you choose it. Okay. So Chris Heller said something that I absolutely loved. He said, I'm never down. I'm always getting back up. I'm never down. I'm always getting back up. And this stems from him having a lot of crappy circumstances rising to the amount of success that he has currently. He had a lot of crap going on. But whenever people would ask him and saying, dude, like, wow, how do you keep moving forward with that? It just seems like the world was against you. And he said, I'm never down. I'm always getting back up. I'm always getting back up. So think of it from that perspective. You only allow yourself to be down for the amount of time that you allow yourself to be down. Your brain, and this is the reason why I call BS, whenever someone says, I can't do that, I come across as more stubborn or maybe less sympathetic, because I'm thinking, no, you can, you're choosing not to. Right.
I think that's good that we have to practice our scripts over and over again. And I think the one challenge I accept is choosing a partner.
Yep.
And having that partner listen to what you say and have them tell you what they perceive that you said, because the message you say in the script might not be what they perceive, and you might need to change a word or two and tailor that script so you know that the person you're talking to understands what you're saying, and that's the one you keep.
Exactly. And this is the reason why that when we're talking about communication, bringing this back to scripts here, is that just understand that when you're pausing, I know this sounds so weird, but I am a really big nerd when it comes down to psychology and biology, right? Well, specifically physiology, right? I'm a total nerd. So when y'all are like, what do I say here? I see this cluster of neurons branching out and doing, okay, what other neurons am I going to now connect with? Okay, this is what I'm seeing that's going on in your head when you pause. It's because those electrical circuits have not been utilized yet. Those chemicals that are constantly released to create those memories, it's not efficient as it could be yet. So that's the reason why when we stumble, when we fall, when we forget something, when we don't have something, it's just because those neural connections have not been solidified quite yet.
So right? I got a question for you, Stephen. Is that what you do when you're talking to your client? You try to listen to them to see where they are, where their brains are, where they're coming from. So instead of saying what you think you need to say, you want to respond to the food that they feed you so you can process it.
Duffy, I could not have said it better myself. That is it. When we're talking about asking questions instead of telling, it's because it's literally going all nerdy and sciencey, is basically saying if a person asks a question, that question was elicited because of their neural connections. Okay? When we respond, it's because we have perceived, based on our own neural connections, we perceive what they said, and they could be completely misaligned. So therefore, if I know that you're asking a question based on your current neural connections, but I don't want to assume that my neural connections are the same as yours, and I'm going to have the same perception and understanding as you, I'm going to ask you more questions. Tell me about the market, Nikki. Well, what would you like to know about specifically? Well, I'm thinking about buying. What has you interested in purchasing? Right? I'm getting a deeper understanding of what has caused this question, what has elicited this curiosity. That's the reason why, and this is the deeper dive. Because I've said for the past, 2.5 years, ask questions, ask questions. What do people do? Sometimes ask questions. But this is the reason why, now from a physiological reasoning, that hoping that this is like basic stuff, simplified to help you understand what we're doing here. It's so much more than just learning how to communicate. It's so much more than that. It's literally, one, creating new neural pathways, okay, through the repetition. It's a new learned art. Two, it's how to understand what other people's neural pathways are in order to at least being able to communicate with them. Hence, 15 minutes late. Oh my goodness, we've been nerding out on this for a little bit longer than I expected. I only wanted 15 minutes, but I hope y'all are enjoying this. Like, at least in, okay, cool. That this is the reason why mirror and matching, and Andrea, I see your hand up, is that when we're creating these new habits and when we're mirror and matching people, it makes it more familiar. We want that. So the mirror and matching is because if we are a new face, a new name, asking new questions, we don't know how they're processing that information. So the only thing that we actually can control is by looking at how this person is acting, reacting, speaking, volume, tonality, rate of speech, anything like that. Because the more that we are familiarizing ourselves, we are still a new face, we are still a new name, we are still a new concept, right? Talking about real estate. That if this person has no idea and has nothing to associate with that, they go into protection mode. They want to protect themselves against this new stimulus, right? They're reacting to the stimulus by saying, not today, not today. Nope, don't want this. It's because they have nothing to associate it with. So at least if I'm able to be like, Duffy, hey, it's Steven. In your brain, you're like, I don't know if Steven, but he must know me, right? Hold on, what's going on? So naturally you're leaning in. Duffy, hi, this is Steven Jack with Keller Williams. You're like, I can't associate with that. This is new, don't like it, danger, right? And that's what we do. Hence the reason for fight, flight, or freeze, right? Andrea, I'm so sorry, because I'm like, I see you like so politely be like, hey, next time just unmute yourself and be like, hey, chime in.
You're so adorable.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so if you know the script really well and you pause for emphasis, that's different than when you pause and it's like brand new territory where you're creating new neural pathways, right?
Correct. Yeah, the new neural pathways, that's the neuroplasticity.
Okay.
In which literally, that's the neuroplasticity. So basically when we're learning something new, it's creating those new neural connections, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus an intentional pause, that's still these 10 billion neurons speaking to these 10 billion, the same 10 billion neurons over and over and over again. And your pattern is to just insert a pause.
Now, if you get stuck, because it's something new that you haven't done before. It's like new territory. You know, you're a new real estate agent like myself, and you're still learning, and you're having a conversation with somebody. If you stop and ask questions, is that where it helps to develop a new pathways?
It's even still the power of asking questions in and of itself is creating new neural pathways, right? Because again, that process in and of itself is creating new neural pathways, because instead of these 10 billion neurons communicating with the same 10 billion neurons over and over and over and over and over and over again, when there's something new, maybe now it's only 7 billion neurons, but there's still 10 billion neurons over here, which is receiving half the message, which means that the remaining amount are spreading out to a new neural pathway, unlocking different parts of the brain. So I'm going to go super nerdy and say, think of it as you're learning as a video game. Think of this as a video game. When you unlock a new skill, right? When you're adventuring over here, you learn something new. You're literally absorbing you're unlocking a new part of your brain. You're unlocking another level. That's what it's about. So there's zero judgment. Yeah, there you go. Unlock and level up. That's how you do, Paul. Unlock it, level up, level up. So again, this took 30 minutes into scripts. And I still want to talk about what we talked about yesterday, because I want to make sure that whatever we communicated yesterday was at least internalized for us to continue to practice. So I hope y'all don't mind repeating the same information from yesterday, but the reason for it is because I shared information, right? All right, Nikki, thanks for being here, right? But it's just like, if I share information with you, and maybe we didn't quite retain it, I now have to go back to y'all and saying, what's your understanding of this, to see how did you process that information? That's why I say there's no right or wrong. How you process information is how you process information. I just want to see if that is comparative to the message that I wanted to relay. Okay, so
if you just go over it one time and then you don't see it again for several months, it's forgotten. It doesn't go to long-term storage. It's just like, you know, you said, well, what we talked about yesterday, I was starting to think, what did we talk about yesterday?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But if you practice, or as what does Tony Robbins say? Repetition is the mother of skill.
That's it. That's the reason why. Now you know what that means on a superficial level, right? What it means on a deeper level, literally what's happening physiological, you know, from a physiological perspective. You now understand what's happening with those neural pathways. So let's tap back into this, okay? So yesterday we were talking about essentially the shifting market. The next thing that I'm going to reasonably expect to happen is an interest in a hike in interest rates. So some of the things that I want to repeat back: for every 1% interest rate increase, for every 1% increase in interest rate, how much purchasing power roughly do you lose?
10%.
Yeah.
10%.
So if you have a $5,000 a month budget for $1 million property and at a 3% interest, okay, so your payment is $5,000 a month for $1 million property at 3% interest. If a person waits another 6 months because they want prices to drop, good luck. But if the interest rates go up to 4%, for the same monthly payment of $5,000, now how much house can they afford?
About 900.
900, right? Is that fair to the client? It is what it is, but it's not fair, because the properties that I look at $1 million, at least up here, they're a little bit different than the 900,000, right? Especially from a condo perspective. I'm probably not going to get the same upgrades for a $900,000 condo as $1 million condo, right? So when we're communicating it from that perspective, help people understand that as the market shifts, there's balances and counterbalances, okay? The next thing that we're going to expect is an increase in interest rates. Be on the lookout for that, okay? So when a person is concerned about going on the market because there's less buyers, how do you reframe that?
More serious buyers.
Yes, there are more serious buyers out there. So are we going for quantity or quality?
Right.
When a
Back
person,
to your quote from before, would you rather have hundreds of looky-loos or a dozen of really serious people?
that's it. So I'm going to continue to nerd out and sprinkle this in. Think of it from this perspective. The reframe makes it it makes it a different context to tap into a new neural pathway. Analogies tap into the same familiar pathways. Does that make sense? Maybe not everybody can associate, you know, having a meeting about real estate as important, but everybody can relate to the power and the importance of planning a vacation before going on that vacation. Most people can associate with that. Hence the reason for the analogies, hence the reason for mirror matching. We want to elicit the familiar neural pathways that are literally created in our brains, in other people's brains, okay? So how do we reframe that again, Dave? So if I were to say, Dave, I don't know if I want to go on the market right now. I heard the market is softening. Maybe I should just end up waiting.
Well, it is softening a little bit. You know, you're right there, but which would you rather have? Hundreds of looky-loos or a smaller set of really motivated, serious buyers?
There you go. There you go. So that's a double bind. Rob, how do we reframe it?
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. Dude, that's perfect. No, we want to share these different techniques. That's how you internalize it. If that's what came out, Dave, run with it.
Are you worried that there won't be enough interest in your home?
There we go. You're worried that there's not going to be enough interest in your home. How else can we reframe it?
Or get what you need?
There you go. Is that because you're concerned that you're not going to get the price you want for your property? Right? What about a buyer? It's saying that I'm going to continue to wait. I heard that it's just starting to soften. So now what I want to do is I want to wait a little bit longer and see what happens.
You think others might be doing the same thing you are?
Potentially.
What's it going to do for your price and your competition?
There you go. Yeah, competition first. Yeah, well, probably
Yeah,
more
competition
competition.
first,
Yeah.
And then what's it going to do for your price when everybody comes out of the woodwork?
There you go. I would even further exacerbate that by saying, have we not already seen this in the very recent past?
Yeah, you want to go through this again?
Do you really, seriously, that's really what it's about. And this is almost the reason why that the market is almost impossible to predict. Almost impossible to predict. Because again, we have no idea when people are going to come out of the woodwork, when everybody has the mutual understanding. Again, news sources, people make decisions off of information that happened 90 days ago. The only reason why we know that the top of the market was 3 months ago was because it's no longer the top of the market, right? That's the only reason why we know. We don't know when the market's going to bottom out until the prices already start to increase again. Get it?
Yeah.
So this is the reason why that we're communicating with people on a familiar level. We don't need to educate them and saying, well, you know, it's impossible to time the market. I think that, you know, I don't know if this is going to actually work out for you. It's not about that. It's just about tapping into those neural connections where a person can associate with the unpredictability, right? Saying, well, what's the right timing for you? That's my favorite thing to say. Well, when's the best time to get into the market? I always say, whenever it's best for you and your family. Tell me, what has you interested in blank? So if you ever have a person that's saying, yeah, but now is now the right time to buy, is now the right time to sell, your immediate go-to, this is just a Stevenism, this is just what I recommend, you don't have to do it, it's okay. Not everything that I say is scripture, despite my long hair looking like Jesus. I'm kidding. But it's like, so if we're, I see Eddie's judgment right here.
Rabboni.
But this is what I'm
We
talking
gotta
about.
change the name to scripture.
Scripture,
With
yeah,
Jesus.
scripture practice. I like it. I like
Stephen's
it. Scripture
parables.
practice. Oh my goodness. All right. No. I'm nowhere. No. I'm not comparing myself to any religious
It is
figure.
Jesus complex.
Yeah. No. I assure you, I have no.
What neural pathways would you have to go to get that?
What's that?
What kind of neural pathways would you have to get that?
Whew, I don't know about that, you know, but once I unlock that, we'll see if that ever happens, right? But anything's possible, and that is true based on what we just talked about for the first 30 minutes. Anything is possible if you make it so. So again, if a person ever asks you, but is now the right time to buy? Is now the right time to sell? Says the best time to get into the market is when the timing's right for you and your family. The best time to enter the market is when it's best for you and your family. So tell me, what has you interested in purchasing? So tell me, what has you interested in selling? The best time for you to get into the market is when it's best for you and your family. So what has you interested in blank? That's it. That unlocks that part of the brain to where you're not stuck on the spot and you're like, is this a buyer's market? Is this a seller's market? But Stephen, I haven't talked much about buyer's markets and seller's market. What does that actually mean? Screw it. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The right time to enter the market is when it's best for you and your family. So tell me, what has you interested in purchasing? Well, we want to get out of a rental. Well, tell me more about that. Well, we've been renting for this amount of time, and we finally identified that we want to live in this area. Oh, why that area? Well, because of this, this, and that, this, and that, and because of this. Got it. Well, how's that different from what you have now? Are you hearing the questions that I'm asking, right? The best time to enter the market is the time in which it's best for you and your family. So what has you interested in selling? Got it. So tell me more about that. Right. So what has you interested? Tell me more about that. Got it. Got it. Why is that important? Okay. Right. And how is that different from what you have now? Interesting. Got it. Why do I ask, how is that different from what you have now? Does anybody know?
Motivation.
It's the motivation, and think of it from dissonance. What am I doing? All right, so Ricky, you're right. It's about their motivation. But if I ask you, okay, Ricky, you want to do this, this, and that for this, this, and that reason, and that's why it's important to you. And then I ask you, well, how is that different from what you have now? What does that do between your current situation and your true motivation? What happens?
Doesn't that create new neural pathways for the person that you're asking the question to?
Well, it essentially creates dissonance, which is a disconnect between, right, what I want and what I have now. The dissonance is that feeling that you get of being incongruent, right? It's that I'm kind of like the so dissonance. Another one is imposter syndrome. Okay, imposter syndrome, meaning that if you're new in the business and you're about to go on $1 million listing presentation, you have a case of being like, oh, I've never done this before. I don't have $1 million property. Yeah, you're like, right? That imposter syndrome, excuse my language, but I'm going to ask for forgiveness later. Quit that shit. Simple. Quit it. Stop it. Stop it. That's what we mean. So that imposter syndrome is dissonance. It's because we know that we want this, but this is where we're at currently, and that gap between the two, it's discomfort. Why? Because based on what Andrea is saying, is that it's out of alignment with the constant neural pathways that may have been created, this bond that's like this, right? Between these connections, we're very familiar with it. So for us to have a new skill or to communicate differently is basically severing certain parts of that to where this will branch off and these will branch off to something else. That actual will elicit the emotion of dissonance. Right? Junior said this Jesus curses. So I love y'all. I love y'all. So when we're talking about repetition, habits, that 66 days, give yourself some grace and just say, I am always learning. I am literally creating a new neural pathway. If there are people that have been hospitalized, paraplegics can heal themselves. That's what I mean by healing themselves, okay? is because if you can teach yourself a new way to walk, talk, communicate, function, you can learn a freaking script and communicate it, right? You can, if you want to, if you want to. And that's also the reason why, is because sometimes emotion, also created by these neuro, connections, if that emotion is strong enough, that is what elicits your will to follow through, if the emotion is strong enough.
Can I ask you that sometimes when you have to do these things, you have to make certain allowances by getting rid of things in your life that are distractions, and you have to forgive yourself for doing what's necessary for yourself to accomplish those goals.
Yeah, the habits are nothing more than us keeping in our comfort zone. That's okay. It's because these 10 billion neurons speaking to these 10 billion neurons having the same familiar conversation, it's easy. It's easy. So therefore, people that are like, oh, well, before I go out and prospect, let me clean up first. Oh, but before I do this, let me do this. Oh, I'm just going to watch one more episode. Oh, I'm going to do this. You're literally, it's your brain being like, yeah, I mean, I could create a new neural pathway. I could learn something new, but I'd rather just stick to what's familiar.
Those are stop signs.
It's because, again, that's your brain telling you, ooh, gosh, yeah, Alicia, can we just stay in the familiar territory? Like, Raquel, maybe we should just stick to what we know.
It's not
Right.
a stop sign, Buffy. It's not a stop sign. It's just a roundabout, man. You just got to slow down, think about it, and just keep going.
There you go.
That's why you proceed with caution. No stop
That's it.
signs.
Not a stop
Proceed with
sign.
caution.
Yeah.
And
Well,
fear.
however you want to see it, it's just that emotion that you have behind it will push through. That emotion that you have will push through, and you have the capability to do so. So when we're communicating these things, okay, again, about a shifting market, we're helping the clients create new neural pathways and new understanding to something that they're familiar with. So the thing that I want to end with is some practice on the script about both buyers and sellers that are waiting. You will see this very commonly during the holidays, okay? So for a person that is saying, yeah, but I'm going to wait until after the holidays, okay? I'm going to wait until after the holidays. For a seller, how could that hurt them?
Have you thought about how that could affect your flexibility?
There we go. Have you considered how that may affect your flexibility? Well, what do you mean by that, Dave?
Well, so you're thinking of, do you think other people are waiting till after the holidays also to
I would
sell?
say so.
Yeah, so how is that going to affect your competition?
Well, I suppose I'm going to have still a bit more competition.
Sure. And then from the buyers, people who are interested in your property, the ones who are willing to look during the holidays, do you think they're going to be more or less serious?
Oh, I would assume they're going to be, well, if they're looking during the holiday, more or less, easiest double bind ever. Okay. Dave, can you say that again? Do you think that the buyers that are out there looking during the holidays, of all the things that these buyers could be doing, they're looking for property? Do you think they're more or less
serious?
There you go. Do you think they're more or less serious about their search? Well, more serious. And more serious buyers, what does that mean?
Oh, wow. People are ready to make offers.
And what does that do for the
They
seller?
those people actually need to get into a place. They're not doing this just for fun.
Nope. They're not doing it just for fun. What about buyers, though, that are wanting to wait until after the holidays because there's no inventory?
How do you think that's going to, do you think others are thinking this way also?
Yeah, probably.
Oh, well, the same thing. How do you think that's going to affect your competition?
Probably a little bit more.
Yeah, so
Think more or less in regards to sellers.
oh, so do you think there's going to be more or less competition during the holidays?
Probably less competition.
Yeah, so in other words, sellers are going to be getting Is it too much to do too many double binds or no?
I don't think so, but that's because I favor them.
Okay, I mean, so in other words, I'm ready to, all right, so like, in other words, sellers, do you think they're gonna be getting more or less offers at this time?
Less offers.
Yeah, so how is that gonna affect the price?
Well, they'd probably be a little bit more competitive then.
Yeah, so when do you think it would, so what do you think now about buying or about?
Dave,
buying
I'm so
a
proud
house?
of you, man. I'm so proud of you, man. Seriously. You just communicated flawlessly. You did zero, very, like, no, I don't even think you did any telling. You communicated your message purely through questions. Thank you. So I want you to pick someone else to practice with. So who's going to go next? We're going to go through the same line. Okay, this is the repetition factor. All right, get those neural pathways created. Dave, pick someone at random.
Oh, do they have to be a realtor?
Well, anybody on this page, I would hope they're realtors.
Okay, how about Eddie?
All right, Eddie, shoot. Good catch. All right, Eddie, you down for this?
Sure, why not?
Yeah. All right. So a seller that says they want to wait until after the holidays, or they just want to wait. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so you're thinking about waiting? Can I, shoot, now you caught me off guard. So, are you guys thinking about waiting because? Why are you guys waiting? Why do you think that it would make more sense to wait after the holidays?
So we can go down that path. Why does that make me kind of cringe a little bit?
Because you don't know exactly what they're going to say.
Correct. But if a person, right, and so let's bring it back to the neural pathways. If I say, why are you waiting, or why are you objection?
It gives them a chance to double down on their negative.
That's it, because they're then eliciting and they're running their programming on, they already made the decision why I want to wait, right? So we have to, we can say, well, why do you want to wait to get an understanding? But just consider that that may make your job a little bit harder than necessary, because now you just triggered their program, their sequence to say, I want to wait because of blah, 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 blah. This is the evidence that I have gathered. This is the information that I have processed, and therefore I have decided to wait. That's what's happening.
So would you guys are you thinking about waiting just because you think there's going to be less competition during the marketplace, or do you think the prices are going to come down?
There we go. Yeah. So it's like, are you thinking because of this? Well, I want to wait just because I figured, nobody's going to be out looking for properties. There's going to be less buyers out there. So I'd rather time it in the summer, or the springtime, when there's going to be more buyers for my property.
So I did the same exact thing. I know exactly what you're talking about, and like thinking that there's going to be a whole lot more inventory to choose from. But think about it. You're going to be going out there in the winter time, right? During the holidays. Who's going to be looking during the holidays for places to live?
I mean, well, people that need to.
Right? Like who really wants to spend their holiday season looking for a house, right? Unless you absolutely have to. So
Sure.
Wouldn't you think that those people are a lot more serious buyers?
I'd say so, yeah.
And do you think that there's going to be a lot of them?
Probably not as many.
So don't you think that like in the summertime when you have all that extra inventory, you're going to have a lot more people out there looking for it as well?
Well, yeah.
So if you want to have if you want to find someone that's serious about selling their house too, and you're serious about buying your house at that point, and you have less competition, don't you think it might be a little bit easier for you to be able to pull the trigger now rather than wait and have a lot more competition later on?
There you go. Right. So Eddie's making about the competition. He's getting me to think about my competition, right? That's what he really leaned in on. And guess what? He's bringing it to familiar territory. Something having more competition, in my head, right? I'm thinking, I don't want as much competition. He's bringing it into familiar territory. All right, Eddie, pick someone.
Let's have Lee. Are you there?
Yes, here I am.
All right, Lee. All right, let's create some neural pathways here. All right, it's okay if we stumble and we fall. We're just going to get right back up. So communicating, right, with just saying more or less. Let's keep it super simple. Let's keep it super simple. Do you think you're going to have more or less? Does that mean more or less of this? More or less. Emphasize the more or less to get me to decide. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm a buyer, and I want to wait until more inventory hits the market. I want to wait because I want to wait for more inventory to hit the market.
So do you want to wait so you have more to choose from?
Absolutely.
Are you undecided about what kind of style you want for yourself?
Oh no, I mean, I know darn good and well, I want an oceanfront condo, you know, 1 bedroom and a den, 1 bathroom, under 900K.
And you'd rather have 10 to choose from versus 1 available, 1 next week?
Pretty much.
Okay, now what?
Well, so here's the thing, right? What just happened? You asked great questions, but unfortunately for this moment, where am I at right now? What am I thinking as a buyer?
You're digging into your excuses not to buy.
Yeah, because, you know, and again, Lee, like that's great where it's kind of like, okay, so you want more to choose from. Well, yeah, right? So y'all just saw, and I didn't stop this sequence because this is important to know. Lee asked great questions. However, those questions allowed me to basically bunker down and saying, yeah, no, I do think I want to wait for more to choose from. So Lee, get me to be concerned about my competition, okay? Simply ask me, do you think others are waiting as well? Or do you think that others believe the same way as you?
Do you think others are thinking the same thing you are?
Well, I mean, very likely. I mean, there's just not a lot on the market right now. You're good. You're good.
Go.
You're good, darling. This is the reason why it's for the repetition. All right. So we just agreed. Okay. So let's bring someone else in, right? So just to help out with Lee. Okay. Don't give away the answer, but let's kind of poke Lee a little bit just to help create these nerd things. Okay. So if a person is saying, I'm concerned because there's not a lot to choose from. I'm a buyer. There's not a lot to choose from. Lee asked a great question. Do you think other people are waiting as well? Yeah, probably, because there's not a lot out there. What's the second question that we could ask?
Maybe what would that do to your competition if you wait?
Well, I mean, I suppose that if everybody's thinking the same thing, I mean, I would probably have a little bit more competition.
Yeah, that's true. But wouldn't it be nice to get out in front of that competition?
I mean, what do you mean by that?
Well, would you like to look and with fewer buyers now on the market, as opposed to waiting when you would have more competition with more other buyers?
I mean, yeah, you know, I'd want to be in the market when I have less competition, but how does that change the inventory? Think seriousness of sellers.
Okay, right. Well, do you think sellers are more serious right now, those that are on the market?
Well, I would think so.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that's an opportunity for you to find just the perfect property?
I mean, I can see where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go for the close.
So how about we go out and I show you some great properties tomorrow?
There we go. There we go, right?
What about suggesting off-market stuff that they have no idea of?
Yep. That's another great hook, right? Melissa, great job. Lee, thank you for highlighting that, right? It's just like, this is something that I'm so freaking proud of y'all, because at least what we're doing here is if we're like, I don't know where to go, that's okay. We can all chime in. This is how we're learning together, right? So Lee, what did you notice? What did Brett really communicate? I'm concerned as a buyer about the inventory, but what did he get me to really be concerned about rather than the inventory?
That he's not the only one with that concern, and there's just a trail of people who are going to follow him.
That's it. So that trail of people that are going to follow me, right? So if I have more competition, how's that going to affect the price points?
It's just going to jack up the prices.
Have
More
we
people
not?
want less items.
Yeah, have we not already been through this song and dance? I'm going to wait until after COVID. You and everybody else. You and everybody else. Now all the buyers came out of the woodwork. Now those buyers are tired. They're tired.
How do we relate this point in a friendly term of like, you know, didn't we just go through this?
Well, that's me being salty, but
No, no,
you know, it's
how
kind of
would
like,
you say that to a buyer?
I would just basically say, you know, have you, you know, by any chance, does that sound like a familiar situation from, you know, what caused the market to really increase the way that it did? You know, did this not happen as soon as we got out of quarantine and all the buyers came out of the woodwork? What did you see happen with the price points? Right? Just highlight that. You know, Dave, I totally get that you want to wait. I totally get that you want to wait for more inventory. Yet, do you think you're the only one that wants to wait for that inventory? And if you're not the only one waiting, how's that going to affect you?
But you know,
yeah. But it's like, so if you're not the only one thinking that way, if everybody decides to enter the market at the same time, what would that mean for your competition?
it's going to be more competition.
Yeah, more competition. And with more competition, what does that mean for the bidding wars and price points for those properties?
Right, more bidding wars.
Right.
Right.
So wouldn't this basically be exactly the situation that we were in when everybody got out of quarantine? All the buyers came out of the woodwork. What did you see happen with the price points?
They skyrocketed.
Yeah. Do you think that the people right before quarantine, the buyers, the serious buyers that were transacting with the serious sellers, do you think those buyers got a better deal than what they would get now?
No.
Before quarantine, before all the competition?
Before quarantine, yes.
Yeah. So can you see the advantage of moving forward before the masses?
Yeah, I do.
Can you see the advantage of moving forward before the masses? A person feels special and unique when you're able to really bunker down and saying, you know, you could be like a sheep. You could. Or you can be unique and special, because everyone wants to be special. You're special, right? But this is what we're talking about, y'all, where it's communicating with people. Your only job in real estate is to help people through conversations between you, what's going on in between what's going on in their own minds. Your only job is to help get them familiar with the circumstances and feel comfortable moving forward. Again, hence the reason why. Well, when's the best time to time the market? Best time to time the market is when you and your family are ready. What has you interested in selling? Well, because I want to do this, this, and that. Got it. Why is that important? Well, because, tell me more about that. Blah, 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 blah. And why is that important? Well, blah, 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 blah. How's that? I mean, it sounds great, but how's that different from what you have now? I like that, Kevin. Make them feel like the magic unicorn. Hey, you know what? Yes, right, Brett, get that BRE today. That's what you need to do today. Get it. So this is what we're talking about. You're basically gonna be like, hey, Brett, so let me tell you something, all right? I know that you want to wait, and a lot of people are thinking the same way. Good job, you're being smart. But what if we were to have a head start above the competition? Think about that. Ooh, Rob, I like that. Would you rather wait and potentially face the same challenges that we had 6 months ago, 3 to 6 months ago? Or would you rather have a leg up on the competition? Hey, what if I had some inside knowledge that could help you win out those bids? Hey, what if I had some inside knowledge to kind of help you get a leg up on the competition? Hey, Andrea, I know that you want to wait, put your home on the market because, right, more buyers are going to be coming out of the woodwork in spring and summertime. I agree with you. Right? But also, do you think other sellers are going to be on the market as well? Other sellers are thinking the same thing. And if they're all thinking the same thing, if we have more sellers on the market than now, what is that going to mean for the price points in order to be competitive with each other? So which do you think would net you more? Having more competition with other sellers or acting now, acting before the competition and working with those serious buyers? Which would you prefer?
I would prefer the serious buyers.
You know, I agree with you. Good discovery. Good discovery. I want one aha just for the sake of time here. One aha.
Asking questions when you're in unfamiliar territory creates more neural pathways in the right direction that we want to be going.
That's it. We're getting them from unfamiliar territory to familiar territory. Again, the importance of mirror and matching. If you're speaking to their tonality, if you're speaking the same rate of speech, all of the other fast talkers in here, trust me, I know how painful it is to say, you know, that sounds good, Mike. So tell me, what has you interested in putting your home on the market? Got it. If Mike spoke softly and slowly, I want to tear my face off communicating like this right now. But I'm not communicating with myself. I'm wanting to be familiar to Mike. Oh my God, I can't do that for too long.
Stephen, do you think that since what they say is what we respond to, do you think turning on your reactive mind to respond to what they say, and that'll determine what your script is right there?
100%, and always run the benefit of a doubt before you respond. Okay, before you respond. Yeah, I know, Mike, you're not like that, right? But it's like, haha. But Duffy, from what you're saying here, before you respond, ask yourself internally. Otherwise, people think you're crazy, and that's okay too. Ask yourself internally, do I really understand what they're wanting to know?
Right.
That's how you know, it's kind of like, that's the whole reason for a fake out, right?
Yeah, needs and wants, needs and wants, needs and wants.
That's it. That's it. Do you know before you respond?
Yeah.
That's it. Do you know what the person really wants to know before you respond? Assume that you don't, therefore ask more questions. Why are you curious about that? Tell me more about that. Why is that important to you? How is that different from what you have now? How about we game plan? I know that it's still early on, but have you ever planned for a vacation? Yeah. Did you just show up? Or did you probably pack beforehand, do some planning? Yeah, this is just like that, right? You get them to familiar territory.
Get them to convince me instead of me convince them.
Oh yeah, well, them to convince themselves, right? And then them tell you, hey, this is the reason why I'm supporting this, right?
And I'll agree with them.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm not selling you on anything. I agree with you, Duffy. You're smart, right? It's like, that's what we're doing with the clients.
Yeah.
They're discovering it. So thank y'all so much for being here. I'll chat with y'all tomorrow, and we're going to keep on these conversations. Have a great one.
I'm going to be out tomorrow or next week. So by the time you see me next time, 6 days left.
All right. Oh, 6 days left. Let us know. Post it on
Big Daddy Eddie.
Baby.
Oh
All
yeah.
right.
Yes. Couple weeks.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.